When we look at a map of the world, what do we see? We see 193 nations, all with neat, clear borders. But what if that map is, well, wrong? What if the borders that truly matter aren't drawn in ink, but are these invisible, ancient lines of culture, faith, and history? These are the borders of what we call civilizations, and getting a handle on them is the key to understanding why our world feels so divided.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to jump back in time to this incredibly hopeful moment when it seemed like global conflict was a thing of the past. Then, we'll dive headfirst into a counter theory that was, well, the exact opposite. After that, we'll break down the very things that bind us together: our language, our land, and our tools. And finally, we'll look at a map of where future conflicts are most likely to ignite.
All right, I want you to travel back with me for a second. Picture it, the early 1990s. The Berlin Wall is rubble, the Soviet Union has just collapsed, and there's this incredible sense of optimism just sweeping across the planet. It really felt like we were at the dawn of a whole new era.
And this feeling, this optimism, it wasn't just in the air. It was captured by a really powerful idea from political scientist Francis Fukuyama. He basically argued that the great ideological struggles, capitalism versus communism, were over. The big questions about how to organize society had been settled, and Western liberal democracy had come out on top.
So the theory was pretty straightforward, right? The Western model worked. It created freedom and prosperity, so it was just a matter of time before everybody else got on board. The idea was that as the world started to look more and more the same, major conflicts would just fade away. But, as we all now know, history had a few more chapters to write.
And then, just a year after Fukuyama's influential book, another American scholar, Samuel Huntington, comes along and proposes a totally different and frankly much darker vision for what's next. He basically said, hold on a second, you've got it all wrong.
Where Fukuyama saw an end to conflict, Huntington saw it just changing its shape. He argued that the old wars of ideology were being replaced by new wars of identity. He said the main players on the world stage wouldn't be countries like the US or the USSR anymore. No, the new fault lines would be between these massive cultural blocks he called civilizations.
So what is a civilization anyway? Huntington's definition is key here. Think of it as the biggest we you can possibly belong to. It's that broad layer of cultural identity, shared language, history, religion, values, that connects you to millions of other people. It's the ultimate in-group versus out-group.
Okay, so this is it. This is Huntington's new map of the world. He's saying we're not one big global village. We're 9 fundamentally different civilizations. You've got the ones we know, like the Western and Islamic worlds, but then there's the Sinic world, centered on China, and the Orthodox world, with Russia as its core. Now, it's a controversial map. He himself admitted that African and Buddhist civilizations were maybe less unified, but the core idea is that these are the true cultural continents that define humanity.
So you might be asking, what actually holds these huge groups of people together? Well, Huntington breaks it down into 3 core threads. And the first one, maybe the most important, is language.
You see, language is so much more than just words. It's like the operating system for a culture. It shapes how you see the world, what you find funny, what you understand intuitively. It creates this whole shared universe that political borders can't even touch.
To really get this, let me give you an example. Here's a classic kid's riddle from the Russian-speaking world. The literal translation is, without windows, without doors, a room is full of people. So, what is it?
Now, if you plug that into a super literal AI, what do you get? It might spit out something like a stuck elevator. I mean, it makes sense, right? No windows, no doors, full of people, but it is completely 100% wrong.
The real answer? It's a cucumber. Yeah, a cucumber. The people are the seeds inside. Now, if you grew up in that culture, the answer is instantly obvious. And that simple riddle shows you everything. A shared language creates a world of common understanding that's almost impossible for an outsider to break into.
Okay, but language, as powerful as it is, doesn't build a civilization on its own. You need 2 other key ingredients: the land you live on and the tools you use to shape your world.
Just look at the contrast between 2 of the world's very first civilizations. On one hand, you've got ancient Egypt. It's built around one predictable river, the Nile, and surrounded by desert. That geography led to a single, stable, top-down empire. Then you have Mesopotamia, smashed between 2 wild, unpredictable rivers on a wide, open plain. What did that create? A bunch of scrappy, competitive city-states that were constantly at war, but also constantly innovating. Their geography literally shaped their soul.
And that brings us to the third thread, your tools, your technology. Think about it. The composite bow and the horse gave the Mongols the power to build the largest land empire in history. For the Romans, it was concrete. That amazing invention let them build the roads and aqueducts that held their massive civilization together.
And make no mistake, a technological gap isn't just an edge. It can be absolutely devastating. Take the Battle of Omdurman in 1898. A British force armed with the new Maxim machine guns faced a Sudanese army of 50,000 warriors. When the smoke cleared, the British had lost 48 men. The Sudanese had lost 20,000. It was that kind of shocking technological dominance that allowed the West to project its power across the entire planet for centuries.
So, that all brings us to today. If these giant civilizational blocks are the main players now, what does it take for them to wield power? And, maybe more importantly, where did the sparks gonna fly?
Well, in today's world, it seems like a civilization needs 4 key pillars to really stand strong. You need a way to manage yourselves, effective government. You need shared infrastructure for communication and transport. You need an integrated economic system, a way to handle money. And finally, you need a military for collective defense.
And what's fascinating is you can see these attempts to build these pillars everywhere you look today. The West has NATO for military and the EU for economics and governance. The Orthodox world, with Russia in the lead, has its own versions. China is building its Sinic sphere with its massive Belt and Road project. These are more than just trade alliances, they are the scaffolding of modern civilizations.
And a big reason why these civilizations are trying to solidify their power is because of this, an absolutely massive demographic shift. Back in 1900, 1 out of every 4 people on the planet was European. By 2050, that number is expected to be less than 1 in 10. At the same time, Africa will be home to 1/4 of all humanity, and Asia will be over half. The era of a single dominant civilization is over. We are now living in a multipolar, multi-civilizational world.
So in this new world with multiple centers of power, Huntington made a chilling prediction. He said the most violent conflicts would happen right here, on the fault lines where these massive cultural tectonic plates grind up against each other. He specifically pointed to places like Kashmir, the Balkans, Israel, Palestine, and yes, Ukraine. Reading that list now, decades after he wrote it, is, well, it's hard to ignore.
And all of this leaves us with a huge, lingering question. As global power continues to shift and these ancient cultural identities rise to the surface again, is there a way for these great civilizations to find common ground? Can we coexist peacefully? Or, as Huntington feared, is a clash inevitable?